Now we are talking about communication. Communication is not science, it's an art. Communication is not science, it's an art. And what matters more in communication is not what you think you are saying, but what the listener thinks you are saying, because that's what they are going to transact with. Climate change is a new phenomenon, and as such, assumptions, perceptions will find their way into the communication pathways. So we not only have the challenge of getting information to people, but also to ensure that people are getting the right information. So I'm happy to be here. And maybe on a lighter note, I feel at home because our late president, first president Dr. Kamusubanda, used to talk a lot about your late president Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He was at Kumasi in 1957 before coming to Malawi. So when we hear talk, see Ghana, we are at home. We are one people. We have one problem. Let's meet, discuss, and craft pathways to deal with this monster. I thank you all. Okay.
We are grateful to you, Honorable Minister, Dr. Michael Ezwik-Usi. So we set the ball rolling and we zoom right into the discussion. And I would like to request Ms. Evelyn Adodo, Comms Lead for EcoCare Ghana, who is going to be the moderator, to join me here and take over the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Gloria. So, climate communication is essential to demystifying climate change, creating awareness, and mobilizing people for climate action. To build a sustainable future, we need to develop effective communication strategies for reaching different audiences. I'm happy to be hosting today's event, which seeks to discuss how we can create this effective climate strategy so that the most vulnerable people in Africa can understand the issues of climate change and also take climate action. So to start the discussion, I would love to introduce my panel. First, let me introduce to you the first panelist, Dr. Michael Uzi, Minister of Natural Resources and Climate Change of Malawi. Dr. Uzi was born in 1968. He had his secondary education at Malanje Secondary School in Malanje District before embarking on his tertiary education. He has a diploma in clinical medicine from Malamulo Medical College, attended bachelor's degree program in administration with Andrews University, USA. He has a master's degree in strategic planning with University of Derby, master's degree in international development with Andrews University, USA, and a PhD in development of youth strategies. Please help me welcome Dr. Michael Uzi. My second panelist will be Mr. Kofi Don Ago, who works in Parliament of Ghana for the past 16 years, working with the parliamentary media. He has expertise in parliamentary documentaries, adequately organized marketing and social development consultant by profession. He is also a media personality by practice. Mr. Don Kofi Addo is the president of Climate Communication and Local Governance, and he leads the group to the UNFCCC COP26 held in Glasgow. Please help me welcome Mr. Ago. And our last panelist, who will be joining us online is Mr. Joseph Robertson. He's the Executive Director of he's the Executive Director of Citizens Climate International and Senior Advisor, Sustainable Finance for the EAT Foundation, supporting Good Food Finance Network and Integrated Data System Initiative. He's a member of the Carbon Pricing Leadership Coalition Advisory and Foundation of Geovesi and Earth Intelligence. Mr. Robertson, thank you for joining us online. My name is Evelyn Ado, and I work with EcoCare Ghana, and I'm happy to be the host. Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for coming, and good morning to you once again. To start the conversation, I would love to hear from our panelist, Dr. Uzi. Please, can you tell us what climate communication means and how communication is important to the climate movement?
Thank you very much. First of all, when we talk about communication, we have to understand the subject matter that should be carried in the communication. So climate communication, we are discussing climate change. And the climate change, as I did mention in my brief statement, it is a new phenomenon. It's a new phenomenon because we are still experiencing new experiences. And what is happening on the globe must be understood by people that include the vulnerable who mostly do not have information. The other tale is that we are living in a world where social media cannibalizes truth, contaminates truth, and attenuates truth. So to communicate, we need to be aware that there is a monster that is also passing messages to the very same target group that we are passing messages to. So it is not just about relaying messages from point A to point B, but understanding the context, understanding the dynamics, because it is not as simple as just telling somebody, stand up, sit down. We are also trying to undo what the monster social media is also putting onto the media platforms. Let me stop there.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ago, if you can also explain to us what you understand by climate communication, and then give us a little background on how communication can be used to communicate the urgency and severity of climate change in Africa to the public.
All right, thank you so much, Evelyn. And thank you for this program. And I must first of all say that I'm happy to be here to contribute to this discussion because, as you rightly said, or question you asked, when it comes to communication, from my understanding, it's a two-way affair by breaking down what the subject matter is to the lay person to be able to comprehend to the subject matter as it's been discussed. So looking at climate communication, especially within the African context, I'm of the opinion that we should localize the issues of climate change even if it's possible, climate communication should be in a local language before someone can comprehend any subject matter. The person should be able to understand the language. So if the language is not demystified, if the subject matter is not demystified, it becomes a very big challenge. And when you look at Africa, we have a lot of language spread across the continent. So I'm of opinion that if I'm in Malawi, if I'm in Ghana, if I'm in South Africa, when you're talking of climate change, it should be the same language, it should be the same understanding, even in our own language. By so doing, we'll be able to bring African communicators to the fore so that they can also communicate effectively to our people at the grassroots level. And like as Honorable Kukufu said, this whole agenda started from Glasgow, where we have seen the best way to bring communicators together so that we can communicate effectively on climate-related issues at the local level especially. Now, when you look at the discussion, the communication at a higher level, it is very technical, very, very technical. So for effectiveness, as I've indicated, it means that we must understand the subject matter and break down the scientific aspect of climate change. Because the people out there are being left behind the conversation. And even some professors and doctors, and they cannot even understand the technicalities of climate change. How much more my poor mother or cousin or brother in the village? And for that matter, I think that it's very important for us to communicate effectively, even in our own language. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ago. We'll go online and also ask our panelists online the same question. What do you understand by climate communication, and how can that be conveyed? How can we convey climate messages effectively to Africa, especially looking at Africa and the diversity across the continent?
Are changed forever by these kind of impacts. And so being able to talk to people about climate change requires translating these big abstract concepts about global temperature and satellite readings and temperature projections into future timeframes, and the costs of 1.5 degrees. It requires translating all of those things into local lived experience, because climate change is about local experience. It's about rain and drought, fresh water and food scarcity. It's about the physical danger of shock events. It's about social and economic opportunity or instability. It's about human health and life expectancy. It's about the question of whether you'll be able to call your home, and for how long. Some recent reports tell us that by the end of this century, as many as 6 billion human beings may be living beyond the livable region of planet Earth. And of course, they will seek shelter within the livable region. So we're talking about most of humanity in the year 2100 will be looking for a home, essentially. So these are very local, very human things. And I think that is the number one consideration. What is the human element of the story? And I think it is important to communicate in the vernacular, in the local language. It's important to communicate in language that people understand. But one thing I would say in addition to that, and I bring this perspective from Citizens Climate International, we work with citizen stakeholders in 76 countries. And our approach to communication about climate change with government is that we aim to have a two-way conversation. Government can help to inform, can help to make sure that the best available science is available to the public, and that it is translated into local context. But people can also talk to government about what their needs and aspirations are, because if policies are not designed to fit local experience, and that requires that they be designed with input from people in their local environment, then they're not going to be as durable and effective. So that two-way piece is another part of it. That is, it's not just a shortcut to better understanding, having a real back and forth, a real conversation. It is an essential part of communication in all areas. But when it comes to climate change and transforming the environment around people, including their culture, their economy, their own household finances, and everything that goes with climate transformation, that two-way engagement is absolutely critical.
Dr. Robert?
Yes.
Robert.
Sorry, I was just wrapping up there.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes. I'm coming back to you, Dr. Uzi. I want to find out how communicators can collaborate with government representatives to ensure that climate policies are effectively communicated and understood by the public. As a government official, how do you think we can support you to communicate effectively on climate change? Thank you.
Thank you. As I did mention earlier on, that when we start to talk about communication, we are looking at the agenda. Not all medical doctors can do a heart surgery. It's only those that have been trained to do or to conduct heart surgery. If you asked some of the medical doctors how a tooth is extracted, they will tell you that you pull it. But when you ask the dentist, he will tell you for you to extract a tooth, you don't pull it, you push it inside. And that's how you extract a tooth. I'm saying this to emphasize the fact that there are so many journalists, many communicators, but issues to do with climate change should be left to those that have the expertise to avoid misrepresenting facts. We talk about government and the private sector, for example. We are discussing the same agenda. We are targeting the very same people. There is what is called emic versus ethic interpretation. When you go into a village, you should know that there is a way of communication in that village. And certain words, certain kinds of communication, they mean different things. So you have to be careful about meanings. And I agree with the recent class speaker who has talked about the local languages. Local language is very, very important. Not only because it's understood by the people, but also it carries unique meanings. So you pay attention to the meaning of the words that are being used. Governments and the private sector are supposed and should be guided by a common blueprint. They shouldn't be fighting because it's going to confuse the people. By way of example, when I was working for ADRA, I would go in the villages, organize people in what we called community dialogue sessions, and we launch a theme. We discuss, we hear what they think. Because when we communicate in as far as the climate change issues are concerned, we should allow people to also comment, allow them to give us their views, because perceptions can also contaminate communication. I should also mention the value of experience, the value of research. We should ensure as communicators that we know what research is coming up with, what research is informing us, what experience. You cannot question experience. What has happened has happened. What has happened has unfolded. It just have to be understood. And that in itself, it requires interest, it requires strategies, and we should not mix action plans and strategies, because action steps or activities and strategies are different. Because whatever we do in communication as far as climate change is concerned should have an end game and goal. What do we want to achieve? We should be able to assess ourselves. So to answer your question, we need to work together, understanding our desired, preferred future, and also giving people space to present their views so that they are not left behind. We have people that are in the highlands, some small islands, least developed countries. We are different, and we are affected by climate change differently. And certain things mean different things. So all that has to be understood. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Talking about skepticism and misinformation in the climate conversation, how can we as communicators come up with strategies that help to build trust and credibility among the people? How do we build trust with our audiences and make sure that they understand the climate conversation and are able to take action?
Yeah, thank you, Evelyn. First and foremost, in some part of our world, people believe that climate change is not happening. They think it's an illusion, a man-made. So, in as much as we are communicating, we should let the effects be told. Stories that are coming must be told. And those who are being affected with climate issues must be used as an example to tell the story as it is. Until we do that, people will continue to think that, oh, Scripture says the world will be coming to an end. As a Christian, people think that because Bible says, the world will be coming to an end, these are the things, some of the things that will be happening. So they will not take the impact seriously. So storytelling is very important when it comes to the climate change conversation. Very, very important. Now, I remember somewhere we having some engagement with some communities way back in Ghana. And when we got to a particular community, they have this phenomenon, thing that have been happening with them over a period of time. And they attribute it to a particular tree that, someone cut within, the community. And they believe that there's a God that is served, a particular God that is they serve there. And because they cut down that tree, that's bringing in the impact, the suffering and the thing that they are not expecting to happen within their community were happening. So they believe that it's a spiritual thing. But it is not so. Scientifically, it's been proven that climate change is real, is with us. So if it is it's with us, how do we make sure the conversation get the people close to the matters that is happening with us in our communities? So when it comes to the believing system of scientific thing, I believe that until we let a story be told closely to the people who are being affected by the impact of climate change. Either that won't get anywhere. Now, you take agriculture as an example. You ask yourself, previous years ago, has the pattern changed or not? If the pattern has changed, then we need to prove it to them that some of the things that we used to see, we're not seeing them again. It used to rain probably maybe in Ghana, or we think that it rained around June, July, but now it's not raining. It's as a result of the impact of climate change. Now, what are the human factors in making the climate to change? Because we know that when you talk of climate change, the major contributing factor, apart from the God factor, are the results of human activity. So the people must then understand that our activities is causing the climate change. So what are they doing to bring climate change to our people? So when the story is told within that circle, it makes the people then to believe in the climate change conversation. Now, you cannot sit in a particular region or far away from the people and be telling the story. Go to the people and have that kind of conversation with them, live with them, understand what their belief system is. And when you're able to understand them, then they will also understand you. But you cannot use your scientific understanding, believing that they also understand. Until you understand their culture, the way they do their things, the way they understand their things, even the way they eat, the way they dress, the way they do everything, you must be part and parcel of what they do. Then you can communicate or tell the story as is being told. But if you try to use strategies, maybe academically, you think that you're a professor, you're a lecturer in climate change, and you want to use that, that language as academic language, that will not help the conversation at all. So for me, I believe that storytelling and using the impact, the real impact that I've had on the people within the communities to tell the story to our people. And from that angle, I believe that our people can then comprehend and understand the issues better. Another typical example is you can use, as I've indicated, the rain pattern. If it rains in June, July, we know when the farmers are supposed to have prepared their land for, having their crop, growing their crops. Now it is not happening that way. Even as we speak, November, December, it's raining in Ghana. So the pattern has changed. So these are some of the signs and some of the things we can use to communicate to our people to change their understanding and change their perception about climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll go back online. And Mr. Robertson, please tell us if you've engaged in any successful climate change conversation and share with us. It's not online. Okay. Please share with us any successful climate campaign that you have embarked on and the strategies you use. And also give us your closing remarks for this event. Thank you so much. Okay, so since we are having some technical challenges, I think I'll go to my panelists and ask Dr. Ozu to give us his closing remarks and also tell us how he has used communication strategies to successfully embark on some campaigns in his country and how we can learn from it. Thank you.
Thank you. As I did mention earlier on, issues of communication have to be evaluated and also have to be managed. Communication surrounding climate change should be managed through a knowledge management system. Because today we are here, tomorrow may not be here. People should know exactly what we did, and what and why we did. We should also give room to indigenous knowledge, because indigenous knowledge has space in matters of communication for climate change. So in Malawi, we have experts in climate change, and we have journalists in that discipline whom Malawi relies upon to communicate in our context, looking at meaning and definitions in the respective areas. Thank you very much.
We'll go back online. Mr. Robertson, I don't know if you heard me before you went off, but we are closing the event and we want to hear your closing remarks. And also if you can tell us some successful communication strategic tools that you've been using and how we can also learn from it and implicate that in Ghana. Thank you. Thank you.
They educate each other, they do their homework and learn what public policymakers have worked on before, and they look for ways to show gratitude and connect those actions to their own values. And that's just one piece of this effort. The reason I think that this way of working has spread around the world, and in that way shown success, is because it isn't just about saying something. It's about engaging in dialogue between citizens and government, but also between citizens and media. So sitting down with local newspaper editors, radio station managers, and talking about how information should move through their system into the public discourse. It's also about engaging in dialogue with communities and with leaders and with each other, helping to develop and train and empower themselves as advocates to be able to do this work more effectively. That empowerment piece is so important. And the final point I would make about this is we hear a lot about, with climate change communication, you don't want to scare people by telling them how dangerous climate change is, that somehow stops people from knowing what to do. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is that when you tell people how big and how scary climate change is, but they don't know what it is they can do to respond, they start to hear those threatening points of evidence as something that could take away their experience. And so they start to push back and not receive the information as effectively. But if instead what they're hearing is, this is how we can work on this together. This is how together we can make lives better, improve conditions in our society, create better opportunity for people that we know and love, protect the places that we cherish, make sure that that forest that we love to walk in or that lake that we love to look at will be there for future generations. When we have a shared project that's concrete, that's local, that is at the human scale, it becomes much easier for people to not only understand and embrace the challenge, but to actually accept that this is an incredibly dangerous monster, as the minister said, and then start to work on it. So I would just leave it there, but all of these things come down to, are people empowered to get involved?
Thank you so much. Please, Mr. Abo, your closing remarks.
Thank you once again, Evelyn. For me, I believe that for effectiveness, raising awareness and communicating effectively within the climate space, we must all work together, create community engagement, have community engagement with our people, and then form associations and groups in our various communities. When associations and groups are able to come together, they can learn from each other. And that's one of the best ways to do that. We must also not forget that in Africa, I'm here to do the studies in other parts of the world, but in Africa, and for that matter in Ghana, what I know is that when it comes to our lawmakers, I've tested it, I've tried and tested it, so I know that working closely with the lawmakers become very effective, because more or less they are the custodians of our various districts or constituencies where these climate issues are coming from. So working closely with our lawmakers, it's very important to help us implement climate action and climate communication in the various districts or communities, or maybe in our regional level. So again, let us also see how we can also bring our religious leaders to the fore. Because I can just imagine a presiding bishop of a church that I'm not prepared to mention give his congregation a message. Whether the message is good or not, you realize all the people react to the information. So if a presiding bishop understands the issue and is able to communicate to his congregation, you can imagine, whether you're a professor or whoever, you listen to your man of God. And I think that will also help us to, as a means of a tool or a strategy to help communicate issues of climate change to our people. So going forward, I think that everyone must come on board. Communication is everyone's business. Communication should not be left alone for practicing journalists or communicators alone. We can all communicate issues of climate change in one way or the other. And then institutions must have climate action in their policies. And I am about to start a campaign. If you are a member of parliament, we're going to start from Ghana. If you're a member of parliament and you don't have a climate action in your manifesto, people should not vote for you. Because it is the environment that is containing all of us. So if the environment is containing all of us, what is your action plan as a lawmaker? And I think that should be the way forward. Because climate change affects all sectors of our economy. Transportation, agriculture, health, every aspect of our economy, anything you want to mention, there's an element of climate change. And I think that the way to go is to have climate action in all departments of our life. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ago, and thanks to all our wonderful panelists for sharing with us. I think we've learned a lot, and we are going to take it back home in developing our climate communication strategies that would improve how we interact with the communities we work with. Thank you to our wonderful audience for joining us. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and we brought this event to an end. Thank you so much. To those online as well, Mr. Robertson, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. The program is over. Let's sit down and wait for the next event. Thank you.